Blue Hill Avenue is one of Boston's major thoroughfares, yet if you were looking for a place to grab dinner and a glass of wine, you'd be out of luck. That's because establishments with a liquor license are a rare find in parts of Roxbury, Dorchester and Mattapan. Merengue Restaurant isn't your typical restaurant on Blue Hill Avenue. That's because it's just one of only 4 bars or restaurants that have a liquor license. And for restaurateurs in the area, that type of drought is not good for business.
I've spoken to many people about that. Like, I know you like our food, so what's stopping you from coming, say, for an evening? And it's just not the first place they think of because we don't have a bar and we don't have wine, and it hurts us.
Karen Henry Garrett owns the Dot to Dot Cafe in Dorchester and has been trying to get a liquor license for several years in order to include a dinner menu. Right now, Garrett's Cafe only operates until the early afternoon.
It's very relevant for us. I can't see why we would do dinners unless we have something like that to offer, because it's a lot of work, it's a very long day, and there's absolutely no guarantee that we will make anything much just on the food.
The state's Prohibition-era quota system caps the number of liquor licenses in most cities and towns, pushing the cost of even a basic license into the tens of thousands of dollars.
And even with a beer and wine license, I mean, generally they're still going for $40,000, $50,000. I don't have that kind of money to be able to fork out for a beer and wine license. I just don't.
But even if she had the money, Garrett says just applying for a license is a Herculean task.
It doesn't make sense in that I don't even know who to go to apply to. And all I understand at this point is that you can put in an application, which you pay for, to the city, who will then reject it because there aren't any to give, but I don't get my money back.
The Boston City Council is now looking to reform the cap on liquor licenses, including giving the city the power to set how many can be issued. But any changes must first get the okay from state lawmakers. And with me are Boston City Councilor Ayanna Pressley and Dave Andelman from the Restaurant and Business Alliance. This is so frustrating to me. Why don't you just make it happen? Why can't the Boston City Council just say, we'll decide in Boston how many licenses there are and who gets them? Forget the state, forget the alcohol beverage. Why can't you just do that?
Well, we have to reform the law. I mean, the current law is one that is hurting small businesses and hurting our neighborhoods. I started to look at this issue more closely in the last year as an at-large councilor representing all 22 neighborhoods. Too often I was in spaces where small business owners and budding entrepreneurs were saying that the current law creates a process that is confusing and that is cost prohibitive. And so I think it's critical at this time that we look to reform this antiquated law that is hurting businesses and neighborhoods.
It's going to be really naive. Why should a liquor license cost anything? Why? And then you get to keep it and sell it, and it becomes yours, and then you make money on it?
Right.
Why shouldn't it go back to the city once?
Absolutely, and so that's the purpose of the home rule petition that I filed, is so that we will reform the state law, lift the cap, make licenses more available and more affordable, and return control to municipalities. The city should be deciding how to economically revitalize our neighborhoods, not the state. And it won't in any way circumvent the neighborhood process. I think actually it would strengthen it. But let me just sort of start at the beginning if I can. So I represent the entire city, but I call Dorchester my home. In your package, you were profiling a cafe called Dot to Dot, which was the impetus, really, for my beginning to take a harder look at this issue. I live in the Ashmont Adams neighborhood, and I have seen up close and personal the ways in which a restaurant can transform community. I live in a multi-use development, and I don't think it would exist without the success of an Ashmont grill. So we need a Dot to Dot to be able to be just as successful.
Well, Dave, what's behind this? I mean, when you look at the neighborhoods, it's actually pretty shocking. You know, Back Bay has a ton of them, North End, but when you look at the neighborhoods, what's that all about?
The history of the state law was that state officials were afraid that if Boston could issue as many liquor licenses as they wanted, we would all get out of control and there would be rioting in the streets. So the licenses are limited according to a formula which goes by population. There's nothing in there about neighborhoods. So I think it is a wise idea to say, why don't we get some licenses for these depressed areas such as Dorchester or Mattapan? However, we need to be sensitive to this. Owners in the Back Bay who may have hundreds or thousands of employees paid hundreds of thousands for their licenses. So if these are going to be issued, you are right, they should be restricted so they can't be resold and they can't be moved. Otherwise, you're doling out an asset that's extremely valuable. And as we've seen, it leads to bribery and shenanigans because it's so valuable and there's no real marketplace.
Well, I would say that my home rule petition that I filed, one of the things that it addresses is that it would eliminate the transfer of licenses out of urban renewal districts, empowerment zones, and transit-oriented developments. For those who already have licenses, they would be grandfathered in. Existing licenses would be grandfathered in, and so the owner still retains control to determine if they choose to sell it. And new licenses would be returned to the city.
You know, in other communities, Cambridge, Worcester, Nantucket, there is no limit. I mean, isn't it kind of, there's an insult factor here that people wouldn't be able to, what, are you going to drink more? If there's more grocery stores, you're going to eat more? I'm not following the logic, do you?
Well, the fact that there's no limit in Nantucket shows you that this whole thing was clearly based on class. And I think an important point to make here is that restaurants have been hit with a perfect storm of negative conditions. A soft economy, the meals tax went from 5% to 7%, higher energy cost, higher food cost. A lot of them cannot make it without the beer and wine business. Massachusetts has 700,000 people on welfare and unemployment. It's a crisis. I don't care if you're liberal or conservative. And restaurants provide 10% of the jobs. So if we can streamline this process, you can get a lot of investment. Construction happens. People get hired. You get your meals tax, your income tax. Right now, the process is so burdensome that a lot of places just never open.
And Emily, can I just add that, I mean, we're very excited and encouraged by what people are referring to as the Renaissance taking place in Roxbury in Dudley Square. The mayor is bringing BPS administrative offices to the heart of Dudley. But what I know is that at the end of that workday, those people are just going to go home. They're not going to spend money in Roxbury. And so it's really important that we have venues where people can sit down and eat and spend their money.
You know, I got to tell you both, when we went out to do this package, people were terrified. They didn't want to talk to us. No restaurant, anybody. It was amazing that we got Karen Garrett because everybody else, oh no, because I mean, it's just like bribery.
And that's the problem.
This is the reason Diane Wilderson is in jail, and it's because it's the only way to get your license, right?
Well, I think a main reason that I started the Restaurant and Business Alliance was that chefs and owners are afraid to say what they really think. They fear retribution from government and from their customers. Liquor licenses are a lot like food trucks. Chefs and owners won't say that they bitterly resent that these trucks are pulling up right in front of them after they built a restaurant and they're paying rent. And they're going, what is this? They don't do this to any other industry. So I agree with what you're saying, and a lot of them really are regretful and can't compete when you have somebody in a town, let's say outside of Boston, and they paid $250,000 for their liquor license. A developer comes in and receives 13 free licenses within 3 miles of their place. That's it. You wind up folding the doors.
Well, maybe the state should buy all the licenses back, you know, for what they paid for them, or plus, don't laugh, and then start doling them out. I don't see, you know.
Well, also on the development, and I said that my home rule would eliminate the transfer of licenses out of transit-oriented developments. I met with Secretary Bielecki, the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development, and, you know, what he was making me aware of is that, you know, due to a greater investment in transit and now smart growth development, we have projects that are stalled because what is incentivizing the market to go into mixed-use developments that have retail on the first floor, restaurants. So you have developers who have gotten the financing, done everything they needed to do, and these projects are stalled. They're not meeting the demand coming from the market asking for mixed-use development and smart growth development because those restaurants can't get a license.
This is a good issue for whoever is the next mayor.
We're going to be meeting with all the candidates, my group, and some of our members. And I'll tell you, one candidate that speaks well about the value of restaurants is City Councilor Michael Ross, who talks about not just the jobs and the taxes and the quality of life, but the safety. When you have lights and activity, things go a lot smoother.
He was big on the food trucks, too.
And
he was wrong on that one.
All right, I got to go.
It incentivizes other business growth and development and builds community
We'll stay
as well.
on it. All right. Ayanna Pressley,
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.